fellow Toastmasters and future Toastmaster Bob. I'm here to evaluate Mary Ann's speech. What am I doing up here? And that's what I'm doing up here. And as far as people who have inspired me, Mary Ann has certainly been an inspiration, I think, to all of us in the Toastmasters group. This speech is about body gestures and creating an image, and Mary Ann certainly did that. In fact, I wrote in her evaluation that if I were a new Toastmaster, I think this might make me too nervous to get up and speak. Because if all of that is going to happen to me, I don't know if I would want to go through it. But she moved from the chair, and she talked about standing, and we all talk about weak in the knees, but she talked about sandbags on your legs and demonstrated that. She talked about the deer in the headlights, and of course had that facial expression, that dry tongue thing that I mostly get around men when I was a teenager, but it does come other times, and the death grip. She talked about being behind the lectern. She talked about worrying about your hair and the way your teeth looked. And it was cute when she talked about the difference between an evaluator and an exterminator. She went on to table topics and then the evaluation of that speech. So I think that the speech was so close to perfection that I actually have a couple of suggestions as opposed to just finding one, because the first thing that I noticed was the location. The fact that when you came up as the nervous speaker, you stood here, and when you came up as the speaker or the evaluator, you also stood here. And I learned at one of the classes that we went to that it's better to establish a secondary space. The example the gentleman gave was that he'd done something about being at his father's grave and having this speech with his father. And then he went on to further parts of the speech, and he talked about having a picnic. And he went to the same spot, and he said, you know, as listeners, we all thought that he was having a picnic on his father's grave. And so, had you picked, maybe done your evaluation as an evaluator who was confident, standing away from that nervous lectern, it might have been a nice idea. And then the other thing was, you mentioned your images were just amazing. They were great. And everything created this image of a speaker and a nervous speaker, except for that thing about tied to your mother's apron strings. It was just like, how are speakers tied to their mother's apron strings? Before you were a speaker. But I'm not sure that letting go of apron strings makes me a better speaker. So I would just like to have seen a different image there, something that was a little more tied to the theme. And then the final thing, because everything was so good, your ending, I think, I am a Toastmaster, something like that is how you ended. I would like to have seen that, I am a Toastmaster. And I think it would have gotten all of our attention. But as always, Mary Ann is just a great example of how to speak in Toastmasters. And she's on her way to being a don't touch me. Thank you.